The president is going to be heading to Virginia today. He's set to unveil a strategy for the war in Afghanistan, the nation's longest war. Now, the White House released a statement yesterday, reading in part, the president will provide an update on the path forward for America's engagement in Afghanistan and South Asia. Defense Secretary James Mattis, he weighed in on the much-anticipated announcement yesterday.
I was not willing to make significant troop lifts until we made certain we knew what was the strategy, what was the commitment going in. In that regard, the president has made a decision.
All right, let's bring in RNC Chairwoman Ronna Romney McDaniel. Ronna, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, let's start with this speech tonight, this address to the nation by President Trump. What are you looking to hear from the president? More importantly, what do you want to hear from the president?
Well, I think the most important word we're hearing right now is strategy. And the president has worked together with his expansive cabinet and security team and General Mattis, and they're putting forward a strategy. And how do we engage long-term Afghanistan for the best interests of the United States of America? And I think that's something that's been missing under President Obama, is we haven't had a strategy. And so it's a signal that President Trump is somebody who listens to his generals and is going to put forward something that's best for the American people in the long run.
You know, Ronna, I think the timing is interesting tonight, certainly to have him address the nation on the heels of Steve Bannon's resignation on Friday. You know, obviously the White House has had a lot of turmoil and resignations and staffing changes. I mean, do you think that this address to the nation tonight is maybe the president's chance to kind of reconnect and get his agenda back on track? Because with all the noise and all of the, the negative coverage, this seems to be maybe his time to do that.
Well, General Mattis spoke in early spring to Congress and said we're working on an Afghanistan strategy. He had expected to unveil it in July. Now it's August. I think this has been a long time in the planning. The president has always been laser focused on the American people and what's best for our country. And as they've had personnel shifts in the White House, as many other White Houses have had, it's not deterred from the president from focusing on what's in the best interests of our country.
All right. So and staying with the shakeup for a moment, I mean, who do you think is in place right now to best advise President Trump? Steve Bannon gone, Reince Priebus is gone. Do you think that, is it Ivanka, is it Jared, is it General Kelly? I mean, who is in the best position right now to support the president?
Well, the chief of staff is obviously the first person the president's going to be looking to. General Kelly obviously has a long history serving our country in the military. I've spent a little bit of time with him. I feel strongly about his leadership, what he's brought to the West Wing. I think he's put together a good structure. But the president's also going to look to his cabinet. I mean, he's put together one of the best cabinets in history. And he has surrounded himself with top advisors in every arena, from military to business. So he has a strong support team to bounce things off of. Ultimately, the president's going to be the ultimate decision maker.
Okay, pundits and lawmakers on Capitol Hill, hitting the Sunday shows over the weekend, saying that it's best that Bannon is out at the White House. Listen.
I have nothing personally against Steve Bannon, but the way he was operating within the White House was undermining the president by giving that interview where he was undercutting the president's policy on North Korea. And it's obvious he was behind the leaks in recent weeks against General McMaster.
Right.
Again, you can't have somebody like that within the White House.
Steve Bannon is going to be much more effective outside the White House, outside the walls of government, than he was inside the walls of government.
Ronna, your reaction, not just to those comments about the president, the White House, but also within the GOP, the fighting between some of the major leaders. What is your reaction to all of that?
I think having differences of opinions in the White House is a good thing. That's what a strong leader does. He brings different people in. He listens to their viewpoints. It gives them a full picture, and then he makes the decision. And that's exactly what President Trump has put together in his White House. He's obviously left on good terms with Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon has said so. The president has said so. And Steve Bannon returning to Breitbart is going to be a good thing, because we've seen the lopsided media coverage against this president. I think he needs a little more help on the outside.
Okay. And before I let you go, I got to ask you about this. The DNC just hitting the worst July fundraising in a decade. They raised $3.8 million in July. That's according to The Hill. But across the aisle, the GOP outraised the Dems last month with about $10.2 million. Now, while the GOP has no debt, the DNC added to its debt in July. They're now sitting at $3.4 million. Your reaction to those numbers?
The Democrats have no message. Resist, obstruct, divide the country. These aren't messages that are resonating across the country. The president's talking about jobs, wages, national security, fixing health care. When you are putting forward a vision, that resonates. And the Democrats are floundering. They have no leadership, and they have no message, and it's translating into their weak fundraising numbers.
All right, Ronna, Romney, McDaniel, thanks for your perspectives. Good to have you on the show this morning.
Thanks for having me.